Hi, second graders. As we continue studying and learning about people who make a difference, I wanted to share with you this story called On a Beam of Light, and it's the story of Albert Einstein and how he grew up to be one of the most influential and important people in science. And it says on the back, in that brilliant mind will one day be born some of the most revolutionary ideas ever conceived. From a boy endlessly distracted by the wonder of the world, Albert Einstein grew into a man who would embody genius and who would shine a profound light on our understanding of our universe. There he is. The author is Jennifer Byrne, and the pictures are by Vladimir Radunsky. Over 100 years ago, as the stars swirled in the sky, as the earth circled the sun, as March winds blew through a little town by a river, a baby boy was born. His parents named him Albert. Albert turned 1 year old, and he didn't say a word. Albert turned 2 and didn't say a word. Albert turned 3 and hardly said a word at all. So you can see the worry in his parents' eyes, in their expressions. Usually by age 2, you're saying 2 words. He just looked around with his big, curious eyes, looked and wondered, looked and wondered. His parents worried. Little Albert was so different. Was there something wrong? But he was their baby, so they loved him, no matter what. So different, but so dear. So everyone develops at different stages. My kids walked at different months. Some say they walked late, but you know what? They're walking and running out now, so it doesn't really matter. One day, when Albert was sick in bed, his father brought him a compass, a small round case with a magnetic needle inside. No matter which way Albert turned the compass, the needle always pointed north, as if heard by an invisible hand. Albert was so amazed his body trembled. Suddenly he knew there were mysteries in the world, hidden and silent, unknown and unseen. He wanted more than anything to understand these mysteries. Albert started asking questions. Questions at home, questions at school, so many questions that some of his teachers told him he was a disruption to his class. They said he would never amount to anything unless he learned to behave like all the other students. That makes me sad that a teacher would say that to a child. But Albert didn't want to be like the other students. He wanted to discover the hidden mysteries in the world. One day, as Albert was zipping through the countryside on his bicycle, he looked up at the beams of sunlight speeding from the sun to the earth. He wondered, what would it be like to ride one of those beams? And in his mind, right then and there, Albert was no longer on his bicycle, no longer on the country road. He was racing through space on a beam of light. It was the biggest, most exciting thought Albert ever had, and it filled his mind with questions. It's always, always good to ask questions and to wonder. Albert began to read and study. He read about light and sound, about heat and magnetism, and about gravity, the invisible force that pulls us down towards our planet and keeps the moon from floating away into outer space. So he read and he read and he studied. And he read about numbers. Albert loved numbers. They were like a secret language for figuring things out. But all that reading still didn't answer all of Albert's questions. So he kept on reading, wondering, and learning. When Albert graduated from college, he wanted to teach the subjects he loved, all the things he had read about all those years. But Albert couldn't find a job as a teacher, so he got another job. A simple, quiet job in a government office. An office where he worked with other people's ideas and inventions. He did his work very well and very quickly. So quickly that he had lots of extra time to think and to wonder. Albert watched a lump of sugar dissolve and disappear into his hot tea. How could this happen? He watched the smoke from his pipe swirl and disappear into the air. How could one thing disappear into another? So maybe some of you have questions like these. Maybe you have a journal where you jot down your questions or things you wonder, your ideas. If not, maybe you can start one. Then he began to figure it out. He thought about the idea that everything is made out of teeny tiny moving bits of stuff, far too tiny to see. Little bits called atoms. Some people didn't believe that atoms existed, but Albert's figuring helped prove that everything in the world is made of atoms, even sugar and tea, even smoke and air, even Albert and you. Even this book is made of atoms. And what I love is how the illustrator showed atoms by changing the illustrations to be made of little tiny dots all together. Then Albert thought about motion. He realized that everything is always moving. Moving through space, moving through time, even sound asleep, we're moving as our planet circles the sun and our lives travel into the future. Albert saw time and space as no one ever had before. So I love how his mind is racing and you can just see it all along the walls, what he's thinking about. Albert wrote down his new ideas, put them into envelopes, and sent them to science magazines. The magazines printed everything Albert sent. He hoped that scientists and professors would be interested, and they were. Very interested. Very interested indeed. They asked Albert to come work with them and teach with them. For the first time in his life, people started to say, Albert is a genius. Now Albert could spend all his days doing what he loved, imagining, wondering, figuring, and thinking. Albert thought about the very, very big things, like the size and shape of the entire universe. He thought about very, very small things, like what goes on inside the atoms that everything is made of. He thought about mysterious forces like magnetism and gravity. He discovered whole new ways to understand how all these things work. Too small to see? Much too small, he says. Everywhere Albert went, he would think and think. One of Albert's favorite thinking places was his little sailboat. He loved to let his mind wander as the wind blew him across the water. Sometimes finding a quiet space helps you think and wonder. Sometimes when Albert was having a tough time with a tricky problem, he would put it aside and play his violin. Music made Albert happy. He said it helped him think better. Albert even chose his clothes for thinking. His favorites were his comfy old saggy baggy sweaters and pants, and shoes without socks. He said now that he was grown up, no one could tell him to put on his socks. My feet are happier without socks. So everyone has their little niche. Like Steve Jobs always wore the same outfit. So it's kind of funny how just comfort zones, what you're used to helps you learn better or think better. In the town where he lived, he became known for wandering around, deep in thought, sometimes eating an ice cream cone, always recognizable with his long wild hair, which by then had become quite white. Everywhere Albert went, he tried to figure out the secrets of the universe, and he never forgot about the beam of light that he rode so long ago in his imagination. Albert figured out that no person, no thing, could ever zoom through space as fast as a beam of light. Makes me wonder if that's why the title of this story is called On a Beam of Light. He figured that if he could travel near the speed of light, crazy things would happen. Only minutes would pass for Albert, while years and years went by for the rest of us. This idea was so amazing, people didn't believe it at first. But scientists today have proven that it is true. They're all saying, it's true, it's true. Albert thought and figured until the very last minute of the very last day of his life. He asked questions never asked before, found answers never found before, and dreamed up ideas never dreamt before. Albert's ideas helped build spaceships and satellites that traveled to the moon and beyond. His thinking helped us understand our universe as no one ever had before. But still, Albert left us many big questions, questions that scientists are working on today. Questions that someday you may answer by wondering, thinking, and imagining. So, I hope that leaves you with a little bit more background on the importance of Albert Einstein and his legacy that he left on science. And just like Mystery Doug always says, stay curious. Always ask those questions. Write your questions down. Wonder, wonder, wonder. Have a great day.